And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Benefit of a Doubt podcast. I'm your host, Adam Dowd, and joining me as always is co-host Clifton M. Thomas. I still can't quite say co-host Cliff. It just sounds weird. Co-producer Cliff, what's up?
Whatever works. Titles are meaningless.
Yeah. You know, when I was growing up, my cousins would always refer to my parents as, Uncle Chuck, Aunt Marge, and I never did that. Like my uncles and aunts were just their first names. So like, I guess we'll protect the innocent, but I'll say like my Uncle Bob and Aunt Joan. I would say, Bob and Joan. I would never refer to them as Uncle whatever or Aunt whatever. So I would always, the one time I tried, I was like, hey, can I help you out with that, Uncle Clug?
Co-producer, Uncle. I mean, Copa.
Yeah, it never worked.
I had the same thing with my maternal grandparents.
Okay.
Once I hit a certain age, they actually asked me to call them by their first names, which felt super awkward at first, but then you just get used to it. So, but yeah.
Coming of age. You know what's funny? You've got that. Is that lumen camera that you're using right now?
Yes.
And it's funny because it does the autofocus thing. And so when you moved just now, it tracked you, but the starscape behind you remained exactly the same. so it was literally just like your head was exactly. That's kind of funny.
Like that?
Yeah, exactly like that.
That's funny.
That is funny.
I'm actually floating in space right now in a jetpack. You didn't know that.
Yeah, well, congratulations on being launched aboard the Tesla Model 3.
Yeah, I'm in that car, the Tesla Roadster.
You're the spaceman, the one we all knew about. So anyway, now that the embargoes have dropped, and now that I am home, and now that I am somewhat rested, it's time to talk about what CES was all about, because we saw a lot of when I say we, I mean me, saw a lot of great stuff.
The collective
there,
we, just everyone was there.
The royal we. While we were there, I got to see some really cool stuff, and we thought we'd come onto the show and talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually curious because I think everybody, at least I enjoy those videos where you see like what's in the bag. What'd you take with you to see? So yeah, what'd you take with you to CES? I know you kind of told me you were going minimal this year.
Yeah. So that was very much a consideration when I was deciding what gear to take. I asked myself, should I take some audio gear? Should I take a couple of Shure SM57s? Should I take the Zoom recorder? And it as unnatural as it felt to not take that, I'm just like, you know what? I'm honestly probably not going to have that much time to do podcast stuff. So I opted not to take any audio gear with me. The only audio gear that I had was my iPhone with a voice memo app, which, by the way, doesn't work all that great, I learned. So I might be in the market for a new voice memo app. So hit me up down in the comments and let me know what you use, because I would record a lot of people just to take notes while I was talking with people. Especially like the Razer and the Dyson people, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. But so it would have been nice to have some kind of recorder, but ultimately I opted not to. The only phones that I used were the iPhone 14 Pro and the Pixel 7. I also had the S22 Ultra with me, but I never took it out of my bag. Basically, I never needed it, which was refreshing because all three of those have like amazing camera setups. So I never really needed anything.
You weren't going to be wanting between the iPhone's video capabilities and photo capabilities to some extent,
right?
And then the Pixel's photo capabilities, and then the S22's ridiculous zoom and wide angle.
Yeah.
So you were pretty well set up there, yeah.
Yeah, so from a laptop standpoint, I had the Surface Pro 9 that I just reviewed for SlashGear, and I had the Lenovo Z13, which I also reviewed for SlashGear. The reason I specifically took those two laptops was because they both fit into the shoulder bag that I have. So it's not like a full backpack; it's just like a little shoulder like messenger bag, which is a lot more convenient to carry around a show floor rather than a packed bag. When I was in the hotel, I pretty much used the Surface Pro 9 there. That's actually what we did the podcast from. was the Surface Pro 9,
Yeah,
and
I
then
was pleasantly surprised by. I mean, the audio was okay, but the video on their webcam was pretty good
it
for a
really
built-in
was.
webcam.
It really was. And then I had the Lenovo, which I took with me mainly for two reasons. One, the battery life on the Surface Pro 9 is not great. So I didn't want anything to like die halfway through the show. And second of all, because I didn't know where I would be working. So if I had to sit down and like type something out of my lap, the Surface Pro 9 is not great for that. So that's why I kept both of those. But the reason I had those two laptops was because they both specifically fit into that shoulder bag, so I didn't have to worry about a bigger backpack.
Also, I can attest that the I have the 16-inch version of that Z series, and it's it's not a workstation, but it's a pretty
Mm-hmm.
powerful piece of kit. And if you're doing video rendering or
Yeah,
something, it definitely would have been pretty good for that. So yeah,
and
again,
then
look,
yeah, and then interestingly enough, this was completely by accident, but most of the rest of the stuff that I took was by Anchor. So I had a couple of GAN chargers from Anchor, for powering the
mhm.
laptops and whatnot. I had Soundcore earbud. I had the Soundcore Liberty 4 earbuds, which will be reviewed on this channel in the not too distant future. I also had the Soundcore. Shoot. The over-ear headphones that they have, I
The
don't
Q
remember the
series is like the
I
Q30,
yeah,
QC30,
yeah,
or
yeah, I think the Comfort Q, does that sound right? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Yeah, hang on.
Their
They're
branding
right
gets
here. So,
their branding gets me confused sometimes with
yeah,
Bose's branding.
yeah, so and it's funny because I never really noticed this before, but when you look on the side of the Soundcore,
Mhm.
that kinda looks like a Beats logo.
It
So,
does. It's
I
very
kind of
similar.
felt like, anybody would be fine. But you know what? I use these on the plane, and I will put a link to these in the show notes so that you can know what they actually are. I'm sorry that brand names, I just suck at branding, really, is what it boils down to. But I use these on the plane, and the noise canceling is actually pretty darn good. Like it was fairly impressively good. And these nice thing about these is they have a headphone jack that you can
Mhm.
plug in. So I was able to use the audio on the airplane to
It has
to
like
watch the screen
the
in front of
2
me.
plug, like
No,
the 2 prong.
no, just a single one.
Hmm.
But I was able to watch because they have the infotainment screen in front of you, so I was able to watch a movie, and each armrest had a 3.5 inch or 3.5 millimeter jack that I was able to
Right,
plug
right.
into. So, because
Yeah.
obviously there's no Bluetooth. You're not going to pair your Bluetooth headphones to the seat in front of you. So that
I
was
will say noise canceling headphones, I think especially for me, the last time I flew was 4 years ago, but
okay.
they definitely are a thing now on airplanes. Like it's a
Oh
lot
yeah.
more common than it used to be. And
Oh
because they're
yeah.
so
Yeah.
accessible now. I mean, you can get a decent pair of noise canceling earbuds or over the ear headphones for $50. So
Yeah. And well, I think the other thing is, you put on your headphones and the person next to you stops talking to you.
exactly.
That's that's
It is a social cue. It really is.
yeah, yeah. So, and then the other thing that I took was also Anchor.
Ah,
Was this 5,000 milliamp hour battery? I'm pretty sure I've shown this off on the podcast before, but this is the one that comes out and like forms into like a little
oh,
stand.
is it Qi
But
charging?
yeah, so it's MagSafe,
Oh, nice.
which I desperately needed because the iPhone 14's battery is not good for CES. So, like, it would get me through most of the day, and most of the days that I was at CES, I would go back to the hotel right around dinner time, and my phone was struggling to get through to that dinner time. But I mean, you have to understand, especially with the iPhone, I was using it constantly.
Right.
And like, this is not an indictment on the iPhone battery. It is not. It is absolutely not. I was using my iPhone constantly to keep up with appointments, to keep up with emails, to respond, to anybody. We had like a journalist group Telegram thing to like keep up with where everybody was going for, drinks and whatnot. I was using the CES app just to navigate the show floor because they have like floor plans and stuff like that. So I mean,
Right.
again, not an indictment on the iPhone battery. I think any phone would struggle to keep up with
You're
that kind
also
of
in
work.
an environment with a lot of other
Oh yeah.
phones and
Oh yeah.
interference, and you're in a big building, a big metal building,
Yes.
so that's definitely
Yes.
going to affect it too.
And there's also my stubborn refusal to plug in my iPhone into any battery. So I needed a MagSafe battery so I could plop it on the back and keep my phone charged up because
Well, here's a
I
question then. Did you end
yeah
up charging your Garmin at all?
the the venue I did because I had first of all, I had the always on display on, so I think that probably
Oh, for
hurt
sure.
things a
Yeah.
little bit.
'Cause you said that was like
But
3-day watch with always on display on, so
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think on the second to last day, I charged it up for like an hour just to make sure it would
mm,
cross the finish line. And it probably would have made it without it, but I just wanted to make sure. So I did plug it in for like an hour at some point. I did take a cable with me just in case. But
that was a callback to our smartwatch, face off between
that
really
was
was a discussion of Apple Watch versus, Garmin, but,
that
we did talk
was
about other things, so,
um
yeah, well, that's so
eh,
that was your kit?
Yeah, that was pretty much the whole thing. That was the whole kit. I had, other random, cables and stuff like that, but for the most part, that covers it.
So you didn't take your Canon, it was just all smartphone photography?
I did take the Canon. Yeah, good point. The Canon T5i, I used that on one day. When I had some one-on-one time with the Volkswagen ID.7, I
Mhm.
was able to, take some photos of it. So I did schlep around my camera that day, but everything else was smartphone. It was all iPhone or Pixel.
Gotcha.
So, which
I mean, I would
they
think
did a
for
very
most
serviceable
things.
job.
Yeah, I think these days for most things, smartphones are good for 90% of it, so.
It really was, and honestly, it was probably good for 100% between you and me, but, uh, because I took a bunch of photos with the Canon, but then I took a bunch of backup photos with the iPhone, and the
Mm.
iPhone photos were the ones I ended up using because they were more convenient. So,
Oh,
go figure.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is nice to just, with everything being uploaded in the cloud, there's definitely a convenience factor going on with that. Well, so
Yeah.
we've talked about the kit that you had, and,
Yeah.
and if you tuned into, our last podcast, we heard quite a bit about your experience thus far, which I think you had another 2 days after we
Yeah.
recorded that
Yeah, that was
podcast.
early on. That was early
Right.
on.
But, I know you're kinda short on time tonight, so would you like to talk about some of the highlights in terms of what you actually got to see at CES, the
Oh,
goodies?
absolutely. That's what we're here for, boo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was there. I should start off by saying that I was there with Volkswagen in order to see the soft reveal of the Volkswagen ID.7. And by soft reveal, what I mean is they wouldn't let me open the doors. So even when I was even though had my one-on-one time, they wouldn't let me open the doors. And in fact, at that point, they wouldn't even let me touch the car. But anyway, so we were there to see the launch of the Volkswagen, or the soft launch of the Volkswagen ID.7, which is an electric sedan, the next one in the ID line of electric vehicles from Volkswagen. They currently have the ID.3, the ID.4. I want to say 5, 6, and 7. Most of those are like European releases and China releases.
Right.
So the only ones that are in America right now are the ID4 and soon to be the ID7. There's
Gotcha.
also the ID Buzz, which nobody was allowed to ride in, but they did have parked at the hotel. So I got a couple of
Is
pictures of
that
the
the,
ID Buzz,
van?
the minibus. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that's a cute little guy. But
Yeah.
anyway, so the highlights of the ID.7 are like 430-mile range on a single
Wow.
charge. It runs on the same platform as the ID.4, so it's the MEB platform, I believe they call it. So it has a really impressive range. It's 700 kilometers, but that translates to 430 American miles. Uh, but and then
Imperial miles, if you will.
im- yeah, and then there's stuff on the inside that they talked about but didn't actually show us because I guess it's not ready yet or not done yet. But like one of the things that they really talked about that they were kind of pimping was the on the inside, the air vents are actually going to be all smart controlled. So depending on who's in the car, the time of day, and like the direction that you're traveling, it'll adjust the airflow appropriately. So if you're driving north in like the back half of the day, then it's going to direct more air to the driver's side because that's where the sun's going to be coming in. That type of stuff. So
Yeah, then
it's
that would make sense because I mean, that's all about battery optimization. So I can see
right,
how,
right.
because that's one of the few mechanical things you actually have as far as that are
Yeah.
for creature comfort anyway. That is a drag on the battery. So I see why they would want to do that. Yeah, that's cool.
Exactly. And it also depends on like who's in the car, whether they're in the front
Right.
seat, back seat, yada yada. So it's potentially kind of cool. The ID.7 is going to be more of a luxury type
Mm,
brand from what I gathered from the CEO. So you're probably going to look at a higher price tag. Ultimately, when it does get released, they did not release any type of pricing or availability except to say like April is probably when they're going to do their full reveal.
gotcha.
So yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see the car. One of the highlights of the car that we saw was the I think they call it electrostatic paint that was on there, which is
Hmm.
like 40 layers of different paints that are that react to electricity, so you can change the colors and you can like light up different panels at different times. So when they did the reveal, they had like this light show that went on around the car, but the car itself was actually like doing its own light show where like certain panels would light up and like in time with the music and stuff. Pretty cool. Not sure how incredibly useful it is, but it's pretty cool. It kind of
It kind
reminds
of
me of. Oh, I
No,
was
I
gonna
was gonna
say,
say it kind of reminds.
yeah.
Are you gonna say the BMW?
Well, yeah, I didn't get a chance to see the BMW, but I think the BMW had
Well, it was
a
E Ink last year, so I think it was an extension of that again this year. It's just to be
yeah.
fancier, if you will.
Yeah. But no, I was gonna say it's kind of like those old bank robbery movies where the people would like um, you know, drive off in a red car and then stop at a car wash and hose it down
Right,
and it
right,
turns
right.
into a blue car and then they keep driving. So kind of like that, like the suspects are now driving in a green ID.7. Wait, make that a red ID.7. you know?
Well, that's a tactic on Grand Theft Auto. You go to the pay and spray,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, they get sort of your wanted level from the cops after
Oh,
you
there you
do a
go.
bank robbery or something because you spray your car. Anyway, yeah.
That's kind of funny. But anyway, so yeah, it's like that, and I think it was kind of cool to see it like in person. Again, I'm not sure how useful that would be on a consumer product because it would turn any car accident into probably a $10,000 issue.
Exactly.
So,
That's not a Mako paint job.
and I think they also said that the paint itself added like 70 kilos to the car or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was and electric vehicles are already pretty heavy, so you
Mhm.
probably want to shed some of that, but it was neat. I liked it. It was pretty cool.
I think electrochromatic paint is really cool, and I think you'll see that used in something in the future, but, I wouldn't be surprised if you see it used on, like, roofs just to change the color of it to either, be absorbent of light or reflective of it to help
Yeah,
cool and heat the car. Which
interesting.
they kinda
Yeah.
already do that with windows, but anyway, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I saw the pictures of it. It kinda looks like it's gonna be an electric replacement for I forget what the latest version of this was. It used to be called the Passat CC. It was like a technically, it's not a coupe, but they call it a coupe because it does have, 4 doors, but it was like the more stylish, almost hatchback version of the regular Passat, but that's going away,
Okay.
including the Passat. So they've
Mm,
kinda got that, like, premium, mid-premium level tier kinda just opened up, and, even the
hmm.
styling sorta looks like that, so I could see that being a replacement in their lineup.
Nice.
I'd be curious
Nice.
to know if it's gonna be built in the United States where the Passat used to be in, like, the Nashville area. Anyway, we'll find out.
Initially, initially it will be built in Germany. So that
Mhm.
is one thing that I learned, and which will probably disqualify it from the tax credit that the U.S. recently passed.
Right.
The ID.4 is still being built in the new factory in Chattanooga, but the ID.7, at least initially, will be built, I believe, exclusively in Germany. Although I don't know if that includes the China versions of the ID.7, because the
Hmm.
ID.7 is going to be launched in China, Europe, and North America. So
Yeah.
I don't know where the China versions will be built, but the Europe and North American will be built in Germany.
I know China is a huge market for Volkswagen, so
Yeah,
I think it's like
yeah,
their second or maybe even their largest market now. And surprisingly, also Buick of all vehicles, like all brands, Buick is very big in China.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But anyway,
anyway, you
I
know what?
digress.
Yeah, and one of the great things about the Volkswagen ID.7 is it's going to be available all around the world. And you know what else is going to be available all around the world? Qualcomm satellite. Yeah, that's right. I just did that.
I saw it coming.
Yep,
I
I
looked up
I
to the
just did
sky
that.
like there was a satellite.
Yeah. So while I was there, Qualcomm invited a bunch of journalists out into the middle of a desert where they had, previously dug holes for us. No, I'm just kidding. It was a casino reference. Um, but they took us out into the desert so they could demonstrate Qualcomm satellite. And what that is you'll recall back in fall when Apple announced the iPhone Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max both came with emergency satellite communication capability, which meant if you were like on a mountaintop somewhere and weather came in and you couldn't get down, then you could send an emergency message to first responders with like your name, your location, your current state of health, and they would be able to respond and deploy helicopters. That's a Natural Born Killers reference, to help you out. So Qualcomm said, "Hold my beer," and launched
Mm.
instead this Qualcomm satellite, which not only does it have emergency contact connectivity wherever you are as long as you can see the sky, but in addition to that you can also do two-way messaging to anybody on the planet. So
Oh,
be out in
wow.
the middle you can be out in the middle of the ocean and text your mom, wish you were here, and your mom can
Very
reply back.
cool.
And so yeah, the way
Wish
it
you were
works,
here. Help.
right. Well, no, it doesn't have to be help. That's the point.
Right, right,
Like you
right,
can just
exactly.
do you could just do, you should see this, it's incredible. So
Hmm.
the way this works is Qualcomm partnered with Garmin and with Iridium and to use Iridium's satellites and Garmin's emergency responder capabilities, because Garmin has Garmin makes GPSs and people take GPSs out on, hikes and stuff like that. So one one niche that Garmin was trying to fill was to help lost hikers that are, need to, although you'd think if their GPS was good enough, maybe they wouldn't get lost. But anyway, to help hikers that are in trouble. And so they have this in reach service where with a Garmin GPS, you can fire off a quick message using satellite communication, and they have a call centers that are designed, specifically to help with situations like that. So Qualcomm and Garmin are doing the emergency stuff, so you can still, contact emergency services from anywhere in the world, and Garmin will be able to dispatch the proper resources. So Garmin already has all that stuff in place, and then the two-way messaging, this is one of the first caveats of this. The two-way messaging is going to be handled by the manufacturers, which means, when Samsung comes out with a new phone, then Samsung will have to determine how that two-way messaging is going to work. Like
Right.
what interface are going to work, how much it's going to cost, who's going to handle it, stuff like that.
Which I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Now the cool thing about this is that all this capability is built into the X70 modem, which is built into the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor that is, or going to be shipping on phones. Is the first one out already? I don't remember.
Actually, 2, I
There are
think, that
two
have
of
been
them out.
announced. I don't know about shipping, but I know that,
Right.
I think it's, Oppo and Xiaomi have both
Okay.
announced and maybe even in distribution of a couple of
Right.
devices
And
with it, so
Samsung will have it, OnePlus will have it, everybody,
mhm.
everybody will have it except for Google and Apple. And so the cool part is that stuff is already built into those phones, but the caveat to that is the specific bands that need to be used in order to communicate with the satellites are not built into standard smartphone software or hardware. So OEMs will have to deliberately include radio equipment to deal with the L band, which I don't remember the megahertz off the top of my head. I want to say
Hmm,
it's like 1600 megahertz or something like that. So while the modem will have the capability, there has to be specific hardware that will be able to connect to the satellite.
okay, so
So
that'll be, I guess, I wonder where the carriers come involved with that too, in terms of what is that where they're gonna build for the service? Will the
I don't
I
know
guess
that
we'll
they
find out.
are.
So
So
here's a question then too, right? How because Qualcomm has introduced a lot of things like, that, that you see like, when they have their, Snapdragon event, usually in Hawaii lately, where they introduce like, the Generation 2, and
mhm,
paired modem with it. But a lot of the times, you don't see manufacturers actually adopt a lot of the extra things that they offer.
right. And
Outside of,
that
I
is
think,
a
Snap.
possibility.
So that's what I'm wondering, how much of this is just gonna be, "Ooh, look what we can do," and then you don't see any adoption,
Yeah,
and I
so there's a little bit of that. Also, Qualcomm mentioned that because this specific hardware is going to be needed, they don't expect to see any phones that support it until the second half of 2023.
hmm,
So the S23 will probably not have it. Whatever smartphone, who else releases smartphones in the spring? OnePlus probably.
OnePlus,
Will
yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're February 7th. They already
February
announced that.
1st. Yeah, mhm.
7th. But anyway, I think it's the 7th, but whatever. Early February.
No,
OnePlus
I
almost
think you're
certainly will
right. I
not
think
have
you're
that
right, right.
capability. And the various Chinese manufacturers probably won't have that capability to start. And you're right, it's very possible that manufacturers down the line may not see value here. I don't know how they could not, but like
I
if
mean,
you could just
as
say,
a direct
uh,
competing thing with Apple, I think they just to
well,
have that feature, I can see them at least considering it.
not only that, but just think about that. You can send a text message to anybody from anywhere in the world. One thing I didn't mention about this was, Qualcomm calls this pole to pole connectivity, which is to say the North Pole and the South Pole. So everything in between the North Pole and the South Pole, which is the entire planet, by the way. So you can be anywhere on Earth and send a text message to anyone else. And that's incredibly powerful, especially when you consider this statistic. This is my favorite stat from the week is that 85% of the world does not have cellular connectivity.
Mhm.
Which I mean, when you take into account that 70% of the planet is ocean, that's there's another 15% there that like makes a
Hmm.
lot more sense. Like when you first hear 85, you're like, no. But then you like consider like 70% of the world is ocean. Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Something
So
else that I was thinking about with this too is just the fact that I wonder how much this is limited by, the nationality of the origin of the manufacturer because of the satellite connectivity and things like that too.
yeah, it's possible. We can't get into like the whole geopolitics of everything, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna depend on a lot of different things, and like Qualcomm is just doing the most Android implementation on this as possible. We're gonna give you the capability, and then it's up to
Right.
you to decide what to do with it. So, as I was chatting with Juan Bagnell earlier today, I'm like, the OEMs are almost certainly going to screw this up right out of the gate. Yeah,
Yes.
like
Yes.
there's very little doubt that there's going to be some massive like moments when they start to roll this out. But I think within the next couple of years, I would be very surprised if every flagship did not have some type of capability like this, including Apple. I get the feeling Apple's going to have to get on board with like person to person messaging
Right.
at some point. And I would also be surprised if like this isn't just a common thing that people do within the next couple of years. So
No,
I'm
I think
excited
you're
about it.
absolutely right.
I'm
Yeah.
excited.
I think it's gonna be table stakes in 5 years for at least,
Easily. Easily.
high-end higher end phones. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
So
and so that was your Qualcomm experience. I saw the pictures of you guys in the desert there. I wonder what was going on. I didn't know it was a Qualcomm event, but, that's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, like I would say like half of the people that I knew were on the bus. So, including funny side note, a friend of the show, Flo Ion, was sitting like a couple of people to the left of me, and like a lot of us were wearing masks. Some of us were not. I was, and Flo was in particular, because we were talking about various things, various journalistic stuff, and I was
Right.
talking to somebody and she was talking to someone, and I made some kind of stupid ass joke like I tend to do, and all of a sudden Flo's like, "Is that Adam Dowd?" And I'm like, "Why, yes, it is." I'm like, "You clearly recognize the terrible sense of humor." So, um, which I thought was kind of funny. Um, so yeah, so it was a fun bus ride. That was a good way to kind of start off the trip, because beyond the ID.7, that was like one of the first things I did.
Right.
So of course, the second thing I did was to go visit our friends over at Lenovo. And Lenovo has been a long time friend of the show. Some of the first reviews that we did on this channel were Lenovo hardware. And Lenovo is, man, I'm excited about Lenovo in 2023. I got to be honest with you, because Lenovo's doing some weird stuff and it's pretty cool. Like
Thank God.
Lenovo, yeah, I mean, Lenovo has the typical line of, laptops, the Carbon, the Nano, the X1. They also have an all-in-one PC, a couple of monitors, like really cool, but also kind of like a little vanilla kind of stuff.
Mhm.
The like I put it to somebody, they're selling the kinds of laptops that companies will buy 10,000 of to
Right, exactly.
deploy to their stuff.
I mean,
But
that's a core of Lenovo's business.
right, and so they need to do it, which is great,
Mhm.
but they're also bringing some really cool stuff, including arguably the item that I was most excited about this whole CES show, which was the Lenovo 9i, which is the next generation of Lenovo 9i. And this is a dual screened laptop. So when you open up it like a clamshell, and you've got the top part and the bottom part, both of these are screens. And it also comes with a Bluetooth keyboard and a case that kind of folds into like a stand that you can set up the Lenovo on. So there's a hundred different ways that you can use this thing. You
So
can
conceptually not that different from what you've reviewed in the past, but I think and obviously continue, but I think the
Yeah,
main difference is just the refinement, right? And the
I think
software.
so. I think so. So this is basically the spiritual successor to the Microsoft Surface Neo, which got
Mm,
indefinitely postponed. And so Lenovo thinks they have some ideas here, which is kind of cool. So the top screen and the bottom screen, and along with that case, that with the stand, you can use this thing in 100 different ways. You can have two screens, two vertical screens side by side. You can have two horizontal screens one above each other, it comes with a Bluetooth keyboard, so you can use the Bluetooth keyboard in either of those two configurations, or you can set the thing down so that one screen is on the table, and if you use 8 fingers and you tap on the screen, a virtual keyboard comes up. And then you can have the virtual keyboard up at the top of the screen so that there's a huge trackpad down at the bottom, or you can drag the keyboard down to the bottom of the screen, and then above that you'll get widgets like your email or your calendar or your system performance, stuff like that.
oh,
These
so cool.
these are these are all designed by Microsoft. So when I say your email, I mean your Outlook email. So keep that in mind. And then the Bluetooth keyboard that comes with it can also magnetically attach to that bottom screen. and that can become your keyboard, and you can also move that up to the top or down to the bottom and get the same stuff. So I mean,
And
it's
what
just go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that you hadn't mentioned yet, which I actually thought just in watching some hands-on from different journalistic outlets,
Mhm.
where it was the fact that this has haptic feedback for both the software keyboard and the software touchpad, which is
You know,
super freaking cool.
yeah, I don't recall that being like a huge thing. I'm not really generally a fan of like a real proponent for haptic feedback, and I know you are. So I know
Yeah,
that you
that's a big
are
difference. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
you're kind
so
of a yeah.
I had the original yoga book years ago, and if you recall, this is where it had it was the clamshell is very thin, beautiful
Mhm.
industrial design. The second half was actually e-ink, and so you could either use it as a writing
I
surface
remember
with a
that.
pen,
Okay. Yeah.
and then it also had it had an outline of a keyboard would come up, but there was no. I can't remember if there was haptic feedback, but if there was, it wasn't very good. But I don't think there was, and so you're
Mm.
literally just typing on a flat surface,
Like a
and
table,
so
basically. Yeah.
right, exactly, and so that's why to me, I think having the haptic feedback would be so nice because
Mm. Yeah,
for
good
some
point.
people, that's gonna be if you don't wanna use that Bluetooth keyboard, which, I mean, it's great that it's there, but sometimes you just wanna be able to throw that in your jacket or your sling like you were talking about or your messenger
Yeah.
and just take that
Yeah.
and having that as an option that you can hide, very cool,
Mhm.
and to
Yeah.
actually have some context, some feedback without having to take along the third party or the accessory that it came with, so just my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and, I think there's 2 potential pitfalls to this. Like, there's 2 potential points of failure. The first is
Windows.
in the
I'm
first
just
is
kidding.
in Windows software. No, but, I was using pre-production software during my hands-on time, and you have to remember, I had maybe 10 minutes to play with this thing.
Right,
So,
right.
I know some outlets, like, spent hours and hours there. I did not have that time. So and it was because of my scheduling, not because of Lenovo. Lenovo would have let me stand there all day if I wanted to. But anyway, so like the Windows software, I already discovered like one little bug with their software because when I had the magnetic keyboard attached to the top of the screen, so I had the trackpad down below. When I grabbed a window from the top screen, and there was like a little UI thing that you could like move a window to that would transfer it down to the other thing. So now keep in mind to the other screen. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, mhm.
Now keep in mind I had a keyboard, a magnetic keyboard attached to the top part of the screen, and the bottom of the part of the screen was a trackpad. So when I moved a window down to the bottom screen, it just went away. It moved down like below the keyboard, which is not terribly useful. So
One thing that
and
I
again,
did.
okay, go ahead.
No, no, sorry. I keep trying to jump into a space, but then our flows are just slightly off. But what one
Yeah,
thing I thought
that's
that
okay.
was pretty cool about this, again, just in watching the hands-on, was that a lot of this functionality, while Lenovo did build some additional stuff on top of it, a lot of the functionality that you're seeing is just built into regular Windows 11, and you can see that Microsoft has slowly been optimizing Windows
Yeah.
11 for this kind of form factor. So that makes
Mhm.
me think that it stuff is maybe less likely to break overall
Oh,
since it's
yeah,
actually built into the OS.
and for the record, when I did hide that window down there, I was able to get it back by, like, clicking on the icon in the taskbar. Like, I could
Gotcha.
click on it, I think, like, twice, and it would, like, come back up to the top like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to be down here. Hang on." Um, so there was that, and then the other potential pitfall, which I'm a little bit more concerned about, to be honest,
Mm,
is that Bluetooth keyboard. When I did the review of the ThinkPad X1 Fold, the first generation of that, which granted was 2 years ago or 2 something years ago, when I was doing that review, one issue I ran into was a propensity to either double up characters or drop characters when I was typing. So you could be like, I think this keyboard is really going to be grat, you know?
I remember
And
Michael Fisher had this exact same issue. Yeah.
so, and it's funny, like, side note to that, I didn't really have that issue initially until I saw his review, and then it like started. Or like maybe I did have it, but I didn't notice it. But like I
Right.
started noticing it after I watched his review. But
You
so like
noticed it?
I asked them specifically, like, if they had done any optimizations to fix that, and they
Hmm.
did not give me a great answer.
Ah.
They said, "Well, that was 2 years old, and some optimizations have been made since then." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that's not what I asked, but all right." So we'll see.
Hmm.
Um, what I can tell you though is I am excited as hell to try this thing out.
Yes.
Um, I believe that if there is a review, it will almost certainly happen on SlashGear, but we'll be able to talk about it here too, and I'm sure I'll probably do at least one podcast from it. So, yeah, I'm excited to get my hands on that. There was some others Lenovo stuff. They had a couple of e-inks devices. They had an
Mhm.
e-ink Lenovo Smart Paper is what they called it, which is like a note taking, like kind of like a Kindle Scribe competitor, basically. They also had a laptop with two sides, like the opening screen had two sides. One was an OLED, the other side was an e-ink display.
That was really cool, the twist.
The twist, I believe it was called the ThinkPad Plus twist. And so you could theoretically use Windows on an e-ink display, which was surprisingly surprisingly responsive.
Hmm.
There were actually two different settings that you could change for the twist, which would give you a responsive screen in with a lack of graphics with a lack of graphics resolution, or you could go high quality graphics with a lack of response, and
Ah,
that was a bit doggish to run Windows. I'll be honest.
I
So
think that would be more of like if you're using the Kindle app or something and you want that
yeah, I
higher
think it.
legibility.
Yeah, I think it's more if you're like that's useful in a couple of different ways. One, you can have the back of your laptop look like anything you want. So you could put
Mm,
like a picture of your Hawaii vacation back there, and that could just be the back of your laptop, and it doesn't cost you a single electron to leave it that way. Or if your job is kind of like mine, where you're doing editing all day and you're doing a lot of reading, I could see that being like a little bit of a power saver. So if you wanted to read on that, and you would still get like the graphics that you would need, so I could still, see what the images were and stuff like that. So I could see that being potentially potentially useful. And of course, since it's a laptop and there's a screen on both sides, when you close the screen, you can have it like tablet mode,
mhm.
which is cool. So I'm always down for a Windows tablet. But yeah, so there was that, and then the last item was a Motorola item, which was the Motorola Think Phone, which is, I believe, now I don't know where exactly this is going to land in Motorola's portfolio. It is definitely a premium phone because it's a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor, 50 megapixel camera and whatnot. But a lot of the things that they showed off, and you might actually be a little bit more familiar with this than I am, since you've been on Windows and Android more than I have over the last several months. But this is the Think Phone is basically uses more than just the ThinkPad branding. It looks like a ThinkPad, like on the back, it has that carbon fiber back to it, but it also has some really deep integration with Windows, and it's any Windows laptop, not just Lenovo, computers, where you can do like the iPhone kind of things, where you can import a photo that you take from from your phone's camera into a PowerPoint deck that you're working on the laptop, or you can
Right.
copy and paste a phone number from your laptop, and then you can paste that into the dialer on your phone. So like cool stuff like that.
So Microsoft has had integrated into Windows 11, and I think even into Windows 10 before that.
Mhm.
Some Android phone integration.
Okay.
That was it was
I
actually
never
I think it was like deep. Actually, it came on Samsung at least on the S series by default.
Right.
Whereas instead of installing it from the Play Store, but it works with just about any uh, Android phone.
Yeah.
And it even if you start with a new Windows laptop, it prompts you to go ahead
To
and
set up
connect
your
it
Android phone.
before
I
exactly.
never
But I think that this is um, specific to Lenovo. I think this is their software, their integration, and it's supposed to have deeper integration with ThinkPad
Yeah.
specifically, which makes me think. I mean, I think this is an enterprise play
It is. It is
because yeah,
100% an enterprise play.
exactly, because if you're a Lenovo shop as an entity and then you're, let's just say, a system administrator, I mean, you can administer things so much easier if everything is deeply integrated
Mhm.
and you're running Microsoft services and things like that too. That this is just
Yeah.
going to be one, I guess, more step beyond that. But yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
this is going to be like, hey there, FedEx, do you want to buy 10,000 of these? That
Right.
kind of thing.
And so I asked specifically Doug Machow, I think is how you pronounce his name, was there. He's like they're one of their VPs of like product for
Mhm.
Motorola. I've actually interviewed him before on the Android Authority podcast, so it was nice to reconnect with him. But he was
Chicago
there and I
boys.
asked him yeah. So I asked him specifically, like, is this going to be marketed towards, B2B, or is it going to be a consumer product? And he said it was going to be a consumer product. And Motorola later clarified that in some markets it will be sold as an unlocked phone. So
Hmm.
I don't know if the US is one of those markets. So I guess stay tuned. But I'll be interested to see, because I mean that could be a potentially pretty good flagship. It's got flagship. It's got a military standard um uh G-force ratings, so you could drop it on
Right.
over
Right.
military standard 810H, I believe it was. It's
Hmm.
also like 8 millimeters thick, 8.3 millimeters thick, with a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. So I mean, it's very thin, it's very light, and it's pretty powerful. So I'll be interested to get that into the lab and play with that a little bit to see how well it works.
Well, it's interesting
Just
because that
overall.
like Lenovo already sells Motorola unlocked phones on their website.
Hmm.
Um, and now when if you boot up a recent Android Motorola phone, it has think like Lenovo think some security or something
Think
built
Shield or
into
something
it.
like that,
Think
I think is what
Shield,
it's
yeah.
called.
So
Yeah.
those two have I mean, to me, this is no surprise because they have been coming closer and closer together.
Right.
I
Right.
think this was like the inevitable matchup. And I think I even had said like 6 months to a year ago, I was like, where's the ThinkPad phone? Wouldn't it be so cool if they did that? This isn't
Is
from like a
it's
design standpoint what I was looking for. I wish that they had gone like one step further and really went with like that real rectilinear kind of design. But as like
mm,
as a first gen device, I'm still excited to see it.
mhm.
Yeah, I love that aramid fiber, like the soft touch finish, carbon
Yeah, yeah,
fiber back and
exactly.
things like that. That really ties
Um,
it back to the Lenovo brand and the logo, and then it does have that, like, red, I think it's
the
like a
red accented,
programmable button.
yeah, programmable button. Yep.
Mhm. So,
So
I mean,
that
there's
was
definitely
yeah,
some
yeah.
think it'd be really funny if they just felt obligated to do, like, a virtual pink nub on the keyboard.
Oh my god, that would be hilarious. Um,
Uh,
but you know
but I
what?
digress.
Potentially useful, because I mean, think about
Yeah.
it. You put that pink nub in there, and like, if you're typing in text, you could like potentially use the keyboard itself as like a trackpad if you like press and hold to like move your cursor or something.
Yeah.
I can see that being a feature. So get on that Motorola.
Somebody's gonna mod it in, they are.
Right. Okay. So we're kind of running out of time. We've got like maybe 12 minutes left. So we should spend probably 6 minutes each on the last two
Sounds good.
big companies that I saw. So, like, I should mention that, while I was there, I went to go see Roborock, which they make, robot vacuums. I went to go see Garmin.
Xiaomi company.
I Oh yeah, yeah. I went to go see Garmin because they do wearables. In this particular case, they were doing more like automotive type stuff. I went to go see OnePlus. OnePlus didn't have a booth there, but they were with the Navitas people who do like GAN technology.
Mhm.
So I got to go. Meet them. And all these people I've been working with for years, and I like finally got to first of all, I did not shake anybody's hand the entire week that I was there. So, but I did get to fist bump them, which was nice. Let's see, who else did I go see? Odyssey, which is audio company, and I saw Jimmy. I don't know how to pronounce their name, but it's like XGIMI. They're a projector company that I worked with when I was at LifeWire, just like all these different companies. So it was really good to see all these things. But like the two others that like really stood out of the show were Razer and finally Dyson. So let's talk about Razer first, real quick. Razer had a whole bunch of different offerings that they wanted to show off. I would say the most notable would either be the new line of Razer Blade laptops, which one of which will have an 18-inch display,
Yeah.
which is just huge. So, but the other thing that I think was like more appealing to me specifically was the Razer Edge, which is the super high end tablet that they have with the built-in it's the Kishi, right? The Razer Kishi
Yes.
controller deal. So it's like a bundle basically for like $400. It's got a super it's a 6.8-inch display, um uh, uh 4K screen, I believe. I'm coming up with stats off the top of my head. 120 hertz refresh rate, and it comes with this Kishi built onto it. So like you've got the controllers on either side. But more interestingly, they have software optimization. Like they have a Razer launcher basically that automatically gives you like a carousel of games that support the Kishi and the controller.
Hmm.
And the way it breaks down is the tablet itself is about $250. The Kishi is another 150. So they're selling it as a bundle for like $400. Plus they're selling it with Verizon with 5G connectivity.
I
And
saw that.
it's basically like $10 a month for 36 months. So it's
Yeah.
$360 if you buy it with with 5G. So it's actually a little bit cheaper than it is if you buy it
I think it was, or
Wi-Fi only.
$500 if you didn't do a payment plan
Yeah.
with
And then
LTE. Yeah.
and also if you
Or
buy
5G.
a phone along with the Razer Edge, then you get it actually for half off.
Hmm.
So, which like 170 some dollars or something like that, $180 or something like that. Really, I mean, it's a really good deal for what it is. And I got a chance to play with it a little bit. Most of the mobile games that I play don't support controllers yet.
Right.
So, but yeah, so the games that I was able to play though played very well with the Kishi. Because that has a USB-C interface that like plugs directly into the device, so there's basically no latency with the controller, which is great. The other thing that Razer had, which really impressed me, but I don't know that I would necessarily have a strong use case for, was they had a webcam which had an almost 1-inch sensor. I want to say it was 1/1.2 inch sensor, and like the bokeh that you would get from this camera was astonishing. Like it was like basically DSLR quality
Even kind of
imagery that
looks
you
like
would
a
get.
DSLR lens.
It did. I mean, yeah, it looks like, I mean, this thing is probably
Yeah.
about that big, give or take. So it's like almost as big as my head. And it just sits on top of your computer and gives you like basically DSLR quality imagery for like game streaming and stuff like that, which I'm just saying, Razer, we've got a podcast here where we use webcams, so hook us up. uh but uh but anyway, so yeah, I really wanted to briefly go over what Razer had, just because they've got some really impressive hardware
Razer always has
coming
pretty.
out.
The Razer usually does like one crazy thing. Like they've had like the Razer Blade, but it'll have like the second screen that comes out or something. They always do something kind
Yeah,
of crazy
yeah,
for CES. It seems like so.
yeah. Like I
Yeah,
think
I would.
the 18-inch laptop was
Yeah,
pretty
the
crazy.
Razer Blade with the 18. I mean, but usually those are pretty thin. So even though it's gigantic, I imagine it's still probably not that heavy, maybe compared to a lot of gaming laptops.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely thinner and lighter than like the P11 that I use here, which is, obviously that's a mobile workstation, so that's kind of
Yeah,
designed
yeah.
to be pretty hefty. But we've got 5 minutes left, and I want to give those 5 minutes to Dyson because I got a chance to try out the Dyson Zone, which is the Batman Bane headset that pumps fresh air into your face. And look, I got to be honest. When Dyson offered me the chance to go see this, I went mostly so I would have the opportunity to dunk on this thing for the rest of the year. Just like, yeah, that's crazy, but is it crazy as a Dyson Zone? I don't think so. I mean, I was planning on like spending the entirety of 2023 making that joke, and you know what? I'm not going to make that joke because Dyson has a point with what they're doing. Let me give you the Reader's Digest version because we're really running short on
The
time.
elevator pitch.
The elevator pitch. So Dyson's been working on this for 6 years. The
Mhm.
engineer that I talked to has been working on this for 3 years. The idea is they want to remove as much pollution from your personal space as possible, and that includes air pollution and noise pollution. So they built a headset with outstanding active noise cancellation, with really impressive noise isolation, and with a very impressive air filtration system that draws in air from around your head, and so the mask that you see people wearing doesn't like suck to your face like an alien suck monster or anything like
Right.
that. It actually kind of hovers like probably right about here. So I don't know if you can see like where my hand is, like it's
Yeah, I
just
can.
just in front of my mouth.
That's actually kind of how
So
I pictured it, knowing
so
knowing what it was. Yeah.
and so what it does is it sucks in the air and it pushes it through this mesh in the face part that kind of gives you like a bubble of filtered air that you can breathe from. So it's not blowing air directly into your face. It's just kind of blowing it out in front so that as you're walking, you're breathing in this filtered air. Each ear cup has the smallest compressor that Dyson has ever built, to pull the air through 2 layers of filters, which filters out 99.9% of particulate down to zero point 0.1 microns,
Hmm.
and pushes it out in front of your face. The really kind of cool part about the compressors is, they're impellers, so they spin. Um,
Mhm.
and the way the engineer, his name was David, the way he was explaining it to me is, like in order to balance a car tire, you add weight to the car tire to wherever it needs it so that it vibrates less. Well, each of the compressors in each of the ear cups in every single Dyson Zone that is produced is machined to reduce vibration. So every compressor is like a unique snowflake, basically. It all has like different like parts like drilled out of it to help balance it.
Should be fun when it
Um,
breaks.
exactly. Well, no, because I mean, it's just,
I guess it would be
it's
individual to that
unique.
particular one.
It's individual to that particular compressor. So if you
Right.
replace it with a different compressor, it'll be just as quiet.
So they don't have to be paired or anything. It's not bad. Anyway.
Right, right. So the sound quality is really impressive. I mean, these are like really, really, really good headphones.
Mhm.
Like probably better than anything that I own. Which is, these Rode headphones are probably the best ones that I own right now. And I think that the Dyson is better. And
What
the
what's
noise
the
cancel,
expected price of this? I'm just curious.
like
Like
almost a thousand,
$1,100?
like almost $1,000. I think it's
I was gonna
$950.
say it better
So
be pretty good for that price, but
yeah, I mean, but it is monstrously good. I mean,
Yeah,
these are so good, and the sound quality is so good, and the active noise cancellation, like, so the way you activate noise cancellation is by double tapping either of the ear cups, and when you do, to activate it, you do that, and then you hear a zoom.
Hmm,
Like, you can kind of, like, hear the noise getting sucked out of your head,
that's cool.
basically. And then, like, when you double tap it again to turn it off, you hear zoom. Like, it's like, the way I described it in my SlashGear piece is like putting a cap onto the end of a PVC pipe and then
Hmm.
taking the cap off. Like, that's
Boom.
kind of what it sounds like. And so they had me go out and stand on the balcony of their suite, which was at the Cosmopolitan. So had a great view of the Strip and the Bellagio fountain and all that. But there was this air conditioning unit, like for the casino, that was like right there. That was just like, whoa. You, but this is what it's like. I'm gonna demonstrate. Whoa.
Huh.
Ah! So like there's a little bit of drop off in the active noise cancellation. I was guessing it was somewhere around the 4,000 megahertz, if 4,000 hertz area. So like something like a something like that. Um, but as soon as you turned on music, gone.
Hmm.
Like it was that impressive. And so when I left the demo, not only was I excited for the Dyson Zone, like I put in my article, I'm probably never going to buy one of these myself. And even if I did, I wouldn't probably use the mask all that much. But if I saw someone using it, I would get it. Like I would say, I see you, boo. Like I totally get why they would do that. And
I think
so
Dyson's an engineering company, and
yeah.
I respect it because it's like engineering first, and then
Hmm.
usually it's like as little compromise as possible. And I mean, and you do pay handsomely for it. But I mean,
Yes.
I have a Dyson vacuum sitting right over here, and it's definitely the best vacuum we've ever had. So
Yeah.
I respect them, even though this does still look ridiculous.
They
I
look ridiculous. I'm not gonna lie. But I mean, like, and this is not something that Dyson said to me. This is something that occurred to me while they were giving like their little spiel about like why they were reducing noise pollution. But we've just spent the last 2 years wearing masks everywhere
right,
we go. So I don't think that I think like Dyson, despite the fact that they've been working on this for 6 years, they have really good timing for launching this
they do.
because we're used to a mask society right now. So like I think if someone is wearing this mask, when and if I do get the opportunity to test these, I will be taking train trips downtown. I will be walking around downtown Chicago with this thing on, just looking at the faces of the people that are walking the other way, because I want to see, like, legitimately, like,
Right.
what kind of
It's like wearing
societal
Google
reaction
Glass.
you get. I want to see what people's faces look like. Maybe they'll
Right.
be like, and maybe they'll just be like,
Maybe they'll
it's
just
very
think you're
possible.
cosplaying.
Maybe they'll think I'm cosplaying down
Y
at C2E2 downtown. It's
I did,
very possible.
just very quickly have thoughts about this though, in that I think you and I, like, briefly discussed this, a couple days ago, and my thoughts
Probably.
ended up being, if anything, they're maybe just a little bit early to the game versus where this is actually going. And what I mean is I think they've come up with a product before anyone else has, and I think because of potentially things like global warming,
Mm,
the continued uh, air pollution, that I mean, while it is getting better, we're still a long ways off, and a lot of countries aren't doing much about it.
right.
Um, so they may be uh, you know ahead of their time here in what they've created, and like you said, it also because of it's funny, like you said, because they started developing this 6 years ago. It wasn't like they did this because it wasn't a reactionary product. This is just
To the
something that they
Pandaga.
thought.
No, no, it was not.
Um,
So, yeah.
and I do see other, like, personal comfort devices becoming a lot more popular. Like on Amazon, I see tons of, like, the personal cooling fans where it almost looks like the as an example, LG has those neckband
Yeah.
headphones,
Yeah.
but they're like just a little fan that cools you. Some of them will mist and things like that. So stuff like this, I think. I think
It's
it's
not
gonna become more
crazy.
acceptable in polite society, you know, as far as wearing
Yeah.
it out. They just may be a little ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and maybe that's the case. But regardless, I'm here for it.
Me
I
too.
support it. I don't know how many people will actually buy it, but if anyone does buy it, I'm going to understand why. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's kind of important here. But all right, so honestly, we're already kind of over time here, so we should probably go ahead and wrap things up. I wanted to, thank you, Cliff, for coming on and just helping me debrief,
Right?
CES, because there was a lot to take in. I was so if I had been so I was there for VW, and if I had stuck to the itinerary that VW gave me, I could have had a very chill week at CES. um, Honestly, there were like a couple of dinners, there was a couple of small events, but beyond that, it was very chill. But rather than do that, I packed myself, and I must say, like, I was kind of proud of my appointment making skills because like I stacked my time very well except for one minor little aberration which we talked about in the last podcast, which
Mhm.
is that I missed my first Dyson appointment. So I'm actually glad that they were able to shoehorn me in on the next day. But like I timed it pretty well getting from appointment to appointment to appointment. I only missed the one, and I think like overall it was a very successful week. It was probably one of the most productive weeks that I've ever had, like from a working standpoint. Just seeing people and getting to see products and meeting people with people and stuff like that. It was a very enjoyable, very exhausting weekend. It cost me 55,000 steps from
Golly.
from Tuesday till Friday. So, I've had CESs where I've hit over 120,000 steps, but that was when I was there for the entire week. So, um, overall, when I went back and counted my hours, because I am an hourly employee, it was about 52 hours worth of work crammed into like 4 days. So it was a bunch, but it wasn't crazy, and I think I got just like a really good amount of work done, and that's what was important. So yeah, good times.
And now, you know, you're back. Everybody or most people are back at CES. So I feel like, you know, maybe this is like, at least for people in our community, you know, the sign of maybe things are starting to open up a little bit again. And not
A
to
little
say
bit,
that we're out of
a little
the
bit. Yep,
pandemic, but you know,
we're better off than we were,
right,
so that's
exactly.
good.
And I think
So
I saw a lot more, it seems like from the from a presence and product news standpoint than I did last year. So
right,
manufacturers are finally kind of maybe I don't know if it's the supply side or if they're just seeing the same thing that we are, and you know,
yeah,
hoping that people are starting to spend money again, and anyway, but it's
yeah.
exciting because I
Anyway,
missed it.
it is exciting. And you know what else is exciting? I think 2023 is exciting. I think there's gonna be some good tech coming out this year. So, and CES gives us a good preview of that, and so that's why I'm here for it. Well, thank you again, Cliff, for coming on and helping me decompress all of this. That's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Please consider subscribing to this podcast if you enjoyed it, or hitting the subscribe and like button down below. And if you really enjoyed it, I would love it if you would write a review or a comment for the show down below or on your podcast player if you happen to be listening to this on a podcast player. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you can be notified of new episodes and reviews as they drop. And if you want some early access, jump onto Patreon at patreon.com/benefit of the doubt. I'd like to thank Co-Producer Cliff for all of his hard work behind the scenes, but most of all, and as always, I would like to thank you for listening and for giving us the benefit of the doubt.